you look at the most recent and relevant proof. And if you don't have either of those, I think that's where you kind of get stuck. And you assume you're stuck is probably the best way to put it. If you don't have proof to look at, the last time I did blank, how did it go? You don't really have a reference point.
But I think that's a good tell to understand what you might regret, because if you're afraid to be incompetent, you're going to regret not taking the interviews and not giving the speeches and not giving it a shot. You need to take more shots. If you're afraid of being disliked, maybe you need the courage to say no more, because you're probably saying yes to a bunch of stuff that maybe isn't really aligned like I did.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1624. What should your ideal day look like? Today, for episode number 1625, what can our regrets teach us? There was a season, and I'm still into this artist. I still listen to this artist frequently, but there was a season where I rediscovered an artist that I had listened to in the past, but I found them again. I was reinvigorated by their music, and they were just in a different vibe, and I said, this is my jam. This is my jam. This is the vibes. And I told Taryn about this. Taryn and I listened to this person together. And I don't know if it was a birthday present. It might have been a birthday present last year, I think. I don't even remember. It must have been last year, because the year before we were in Colorado. She got me tickets to this person's concert. This person was playing at the House of Blues in Boston, which is roughly an hour from where I live. And she got me 2 tickets. And I was going to go with Matt, because Matt likes this artist as well. And I was excited. I was super excited. I hadn't been to a concert in a long time, and I haven't been to a concert in Boston in, I could not tell you the last time. Years and years and years and years. So Matt and I make plans. All right, cool. This is what we're going to do. Awesome. All right, cool. There was a documentary on YouTube about this artist, and I went and I watched it, and it was just a little too much for me. There was just too much partying and too much booze and too much debauchery. Is that a word? It was just more than 22-year-old Kev, all in. This would be the time of my life. It would be the time of my life. 33 or 34-year-old Kev, depending on when this happened, it just wasn't the same for me. And I had, in my mind, started to not want to go. In my mind, I had started the process of saying, I don't know if I really want to go to this. I think I might regret it if I go. I might have that moment where I get there and I say, my goodness, I wish there was a button I could push that would get me out of here. We ended up we booked a speech or something. I think there was a speech that we got booked for, and I couldn't go anyway. And I talked to Taryn and I said, honestly, I don't know if it's super aligned. And I said, I'm so grateful. The thoughtfulness that you had for this is amazing. And what a unique coincidence. This person's playing at this time. It's wild. And I'm so grateful. I just don't know if it's as aligned as I thought. And she was totally fine with that. We ended up booking this speech or training or whatever it was. And I told Matt that. And he was disappointed for sure. But I feel like we probably would have felt the same way. I feel like we probably would have got there and realized, oh, this isn't what we expected. And my guess is we probably would have regretted going more than we would have regretted not going. And that's really my thought for this episode. What is your pattern of regret? Are you often finding yourself doing things, getting there and saying, oh my goodness, I did this for the wrong reason. I did it for social media, or I did it for my partner, or I did it for my family, or I did it for my friends, or whatever. Or are you on the other end where you don't do something because maybe it's social anxiety, maybe it's coming to grips with the uncertainty that you're going to face when you go do this thing. I've never been here before. I don't know what the venue is going to look like, or I don't know what the restaurant's going to look like, or whatever it is. And then you regret that. I really wish I would have done blank. That person's not going to be around for another 5 years. They may never, ever come back. I may never have the opportunity to see them. Or this is another good example. Somebody we had on the podcast a while ago was in my area recently. And they said, hey, I have these VIP clients that I'm coaching. Is there any way we can meet up for lunch? And I had that moment where it was like, yeah, it would be nice. It would be nice to meet up with someone that we've had on the podcast, someone successful, somebody that I would consider an acquaintance. I wouldn't say friend. But then I had that thought of, but if I did that, I would be doing that more for them than I would be for myself, and I honestly think I would regret it. There's too much going on. I don't really have time to do that. I think I would regret that more than if I never got the opportunity to see this person. And again, that might sound hardcore or cold. That's just the way my brain works. But I'm also more on, in the past, I'm on the end of saying, I don't want to do this, but I'll do it, and then regretting it. So I think what I've tried to do, Alan, is swing to the other end of saying, at this point in my life, I think I'd rather regret not doing something in terms of going somewhere than regret going there and then not wanting to be there. I don't know how you balance that, whether you're watching or listening. I don't know how that works for you, but that's been my experience. I think I overswung at one point where I would just do things for other people. Going to the Cape camping with you is a really good example. I got invited from Matt to go to this camping thing where everybody sleeps in tents and they go to the beach and they drink all day and you play games, and I had a good time, but I regretted going more than I would have regretted if I didn't, for sure.
Nice.
And I think I swung that pendulum back maybe too far. I don't know. I'm happy with it, but in 5 years, will I regret some of the things I missed? I don't know. We'll have to discuss that in 5 years.
Well, on one end of this pendulum is you do a lot of things and you say yes maybe too much, and you end up regretting it because you end up spreading yourself too thin. Maybe you go outside of alignment. Maybe you're wasting a lot of time and effort on persons, places, things, and ideas that aren't as aligned. And that's one end. And a lot of people are on that end. Or there's the other end where you're letting anxiety and fear kind of hold you back from trying new things. You don't try new things often. You have regrets around, well, I really wish that I had tried going to college, or I really wish I had tried to apply to that job, or I really wish I had gone on that vacation. And so maybe you're on that end. And I think that all of us, either say yes too much and too often, or we say no too much and too often.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of my life, I was the yes man. I said yes to everything.
Do you think it's because you don't have the collective you don't have the courage to say no when you should? And then you overthink it and you overthink it, because I've done that where I say yes and then I make excuses later, because the truth is I didn't have the courage to say no in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the end that I'm on. Mm. And I think the other end is you don't have the courage to say yes because you're afraid of the experience.
Yeah.
If you've ever been offered an opportunity to go to an interview or to go give a speech or to come on a podcast, and you said no, and you said I can't, or maybe an event, even Next Level Live, you might regret not coming. It's possible you regret coming too. I seriously doubt it. If you're listening to this show and enjoy this show, it's most likely super aligned, and you might regret not going. And it's so interesting because it's difficult to know in advance, because there's certain things, there's the anomalies where, you know what, I almost said no to that. Thank goodness. You and I talked about one earlier today. We gave a speech once that we were close to not doing, and thank goodness we ended up doing that. And so the check-in here is, do you say yes because you're too fearful to say no? Or do you say no because you're too fearful to say yes?
No. What's your saying, where the step up to the plate versus swing thing? I never know.
So I want to make sure I get this right. Long pause. That was a long pause. I've done this with clients many times.
I think I just blew a booger clean across the room because I had a drink in my mouth and I couldn't spit it out.
So,
oh God,
let me try to articulate this better than I ever have. Here we go. I had a client recently who, she had an opportunity to get a job, and she went to the interview, which she was grateful she went to. So faced her fear, said yes to the interview. But in the interview, the interviewer, this man said, honestly, HR kind of told me I have to hire this role, but I don't really think we need this person. And she, in the interview, is, well, I'm not exactly thrilled about the opportunity if you're my boss technically, or my leader, and you don't even know if you need me or want me. And so we had a discussion behind the scenes with this client, And I said, it sounds to me like this is a self-worth thing. You are afraid to not have a job, even though this person financially has a great nest egg and has a big runway and is not struggling financially. It sounds to me like you should say no to this. And I think that would be good for your self-respect and your self-worth. Versus, I wouldn't give that advice to someone who often says no to job opportunities. I wouldn't say that to someone who is always afraid to go on the interview. This person is the go-getter achiever who is always saying, yes, give it a shot. They don't want to miss any opportunity to grow, but they're too far on that end. They say yes too much.
Yeah.
And there's a thing in the success space of, the master skill of success is no. No. Only for people who say yes too much. That was me. I say yes way too much. And that's why setting boundaries and honoring my commitments to myself and staying consistent to my back office work, that's my kryptonite, because I used to say yes to too many things. And so to answer your original question, Kev, do you want to step up to the plate? And all of us have fear to step up to the plate. We're all afraid to strike out. But whenever there's an opportunity presented, I don't care if it's a concert or an interview or a phone call with someone or a blind date or, someone on Tinder that you met or someone on Instagram or social media, whatever it is, okay? Are you afraid to strike out? Or are you not even sure you want to swing? That's the difference. If you're afraid to strike out, you gotta swing. You gotta swing. You never know what can happen. You gotta at least try. But if you're not even sure you want to hit the ball, that means it might not be aligned, and you need to have some self-respect and say, you know what? I'm good.
It's so hard, too, because self-worth and self-belief are so intertwined. I was telling you a story, and I told Taryn this the other day. I said, I don't know if I can really convey how little self-belief I had at the beginning of this journey. I said, when I didn't think I could operate as a gas station attendant. I was convinced that I couldn't figure it out because I'd never done it before. I had never pumped gas because I was, 16 and a half. I didn't have my own car yet. So I don't think I had ever pumped gas at that point. And in my mind, it was this giant thing that I was not going to be able to figure out.
Can we go into why you had such low self-belief in hindsight?
I don't know if I ever recognized the things that I was doing and then took credit for it, gave myself credit for it. Of, oh, Kev, you're really good at blank. You're really good at blank. I don't know if I feel like I thought I was really good at things, but I don't know how I ever got good at them, and I always felt lucky. That's always my go-to. I was really athletic when I was a kid, but I never worked at it. Really. I showed Alan a picture today of me in 2014. How old was I in 2014?
20. We graduated when you were 18, so you're looking at 18 plus 7. You're like
25?
Mid-20s, 24, 25, yeah.
Oh, really? Was that old? Regardless,
so.
when I started working out, I got in really good shape really fast because I have good genetics. I was consistent. And I don't want to say I was ahead of the time, but I was tracking calories before anybody else I knew.
You worked hard, too.
I worked very hard.
You used to work hard.
But I know people that have to work a lot harder than I do to get half of the results I did. So I was very blessed in that way. I didn't ever say I'm going to get in blank shape or I'm going to get blank result, and then it happened. It was usually like I felt like I got the table scraps of whatever I wanted. I got whatever I could get. Not what I wanted. And that. I got what was realistic, not what was desired. And I think that
back then, did you regret not taking more shots? And now you're
one of the things. Remember New England Steakhouse, the restaurant across from the big car dealership in Mendon? There's this. Mm-hmm. I knew the owner of that. He used to come in and get gas, fuel. He had a diesel truck. And at one point, somebody that worked in the office in the back at the gas station, who was technically my boss, said, I know him, I can get you a job. Like, I could get you a part-time job as a server or something at that restaurant, and you'd make really good money because it's a high-end restaurant. And I never had the courage to do it. I was terrified. There was another time where somebody told me, they said, probably 15 minutes away. I think I've talked about this before. 15 minutes away from where we lived, there was a Dunkin' Donuts warehouse, and they were hiring, and they said it's like $25 an hour. And I think I was still pumping gas at the time, making 12 maybe, because I was like the head attendant. And it was, I put that off, and I put that off, and I put that off, and I put that off forever. And eventually I went in and filled out an application, but nothing ever came of it. I regret waiting as long as I did to do those things, for sure.
Hello, NLU listener. Thank you, as always, for listening to Next Level University. Real quick, I just want to jump in and let you know about the Next Level Dreamliner. This is a journal that I use every single day. Achieve your dreams 90 days at a time. It breaks down your dreams into goals, milestones, and daily habits. We hope you enjoy it. The link will be in the show notes. I have a breakthrough that I think is new, which is I think we all struggle with courage, but I think our courage struggles are either social or competence. I think you struggled with courage when it came to competence. You were afraid that you weren't good enough for the job or weren't capable enough for the job.
I was afraid of both. The reason I didn't want to go camping is because I didn't think I'd fit in with anybody. I remember, like, one of the reasons Matt wanted me to go is because I lived in New Hampshire by myself and I was somewhat of a recluse. I like being a recluse. I didn't think it was a problem, So for me, it was, I don't think I'm going to fit in with any of these people. Everybody, what are you going to be talking about your college days? And I don't know what any of that's like. I don't know what any of that means. I don't have any stories to share. So I think it was a little bit of both, honestly. And maybe a lot of bit of both.
Not fitting in.
I have bouts of that, for sure. Where I'm not valued.
Which one's bigger?
Competence.
Right.
I can pretend to be somebody I'm not to fit in. I can't pretend to know something I don't because you can tell pretty quickly whether or not that's true.
I would say I've been fearful of both, but by far it's the social. It's the fitting in. By far. Yeah. Courage socially is not something that's ever come easy to me. Yeah. But competence, I feel pretty good most of the time.
It's wild. I know kind of where it came from. Just.
I loved getting good at stuff. I always have. I love being good at stuff. I think I'm a natural student. I hope for some of the listeners out there, do you like to get good at stuff? Have you always been just really good at getting good at stuff? If you have, then you're not really super concerned. I don't know if that's rare or... It's like when you figure out how to do enough stuff, you just know you can kind of figure out most stuff. Yeah. The one thing which is ironic is I never felt like I could figure out how to win in relationships. It felt unfigure-outable for me. Friendships, it never felt easy. It always felt like a challenge to make it work. Always. It never was like natural. But when it came to getting good at stuff, like us with Canva earlier, I'm not necessarily good at Canva, but I can figure it out. And then you helped, and I just get better, and now I'll remember. I don't know. I think mastery's always come really naturally, and I always enjoy getting better at stuff. I've always been that way, even if it's things that are detrimental. I got good at drinking, real good, and that was detrimental. I got real good. And so I think all of us have a natural proclivity of getting along with other people or a natural proclivity of being really good at stuff. And I think usually fear comes in on the one we're insecure about. Some people make their whole career on just being likable.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember back in corporate, the corporate politics were brutal for me. I wasn't a naturally likable guy, so I had to be extra competent. And luckily there were scoreboards and stuff, and I could shine. But at the end of the day, I think that all of us are on one end of the pendulum or the other. We either say yes too much, and we regret it because we are spread too thin, and we lose who we are, or we say no too much, and we never grow because we're not ever getting outside our comfort zone. And I think there's seasons of each. There were seasons where I was a recluse for sure. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, there were seasons. They just weren't that long. I had way more seasons of just running amok and too much. I'm so grateful for my simple life now. And by simple, I mean simple in terms of my day-to-day. Obviously not simple in terms of the complexities of running and growing a business. But
Or the expectations of you.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot.
I don't play like I don't ever I don't ever foresee you and I going out to lunch in the middle of the week. You and I together. That may never happen. I don't know. I can't anticipate it.
Not unless we're at Next Level Live or something. Or,
yeah, well, maybe something will shift.
After.
I doubt it very much, but
I
also
Next Level
don't.
Live last year, we went and grabbed lunch. Remember?
After Next Level Live, no, I picked up wings and brought them back to the house.
I'm thinking of the year before. Year before.
Oh
that.
yeah.
So Next Level Live 2020.
Yeah, but that doesn't count because that's a whole team thing.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if you and I, the last time you and I sat down together for a meal is probably it's on the road. That's when we do it.
Oh yeah.
That's a really good. This would be my next level nugget. That's a really good perspective. What bucket do you actually feel confident in saying it's figure outable? If I said you're going to go into a room with 10 people you've never met, does that light you up where you say, I'll figure it out? It's not that big of a deal. I know people like that for sure. Matt's a really good example. You could stick Matt in a room with 50 people, he's fine every time. Every time. He's going to be fine. But he's also very competent as well. But are you on the other side where if I said, all right, you have an hour to figure out blank, this is your task, and the timer starts now, you'd say, this is going to be fine. I might not get it in the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes, but 30 minutes in, I feel like I'll really hit my stride, and every other time I've tried stuff like this, it's worked. I think you look at the most recent and relevant proof, and if you don't have either of those, I think that's where you kind of get stuck, and you assume stuck is probably the best way to put it. If you don't have proof to look at, the last time I did blank, how did it go? You don't really have a reference point.
I have one more question. I know we want to wrap things up here.
Go to sleep.
Yeah, my voice is not great right now. So you have taken huge L's on this the last 6 years.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You and I both. We've taken big L's.
Definitely.
And true or false, and I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, they're super painful and they're not enjoyable, and I don't wish them on myself or others. But sometimes they are necessary. And I do think there's something to be said for when you take an L that is massive and you get through it and you realize that everything's still okay, it creates a level of, well, if that was that bad and I was still fine, then I'm probably going to be fine. Is that true for you as well?
When you take a massive L that goes worse than you can ever imagine it could have gone, I think it gives you hope. The worst L, I would say the worst L, loss, if you don't know what L means, loss, just a jeffing, just a painful event, would be one of the trainings we did.
Yeah,
the train, the 20. Yeah, that was the biggest.
Nothing about it was good. Yeah.
Just for reference. So one of our amazing community members got us this opportunity. So we spoke in front of 1,100 kids, 3 groups of 330 or whatever the numbers add up to. And then we were doing a staff training. And Alan and I worked very closely putting together the speech. So I felt really good about the speech. We did it 3 times, a very unique opportunity where you get to do the same speech 3 times in a row within a 3-hour span. So it gets easier as you go.
Different age groups, which was cool.
So it gets easier as you go, but the age groups got older, so it actually got harder in a way. But after that, we had lunch, and we had like a 2-hour break, and then we were going to go do a presentation to the staff, all the staff. And I didn't even look at the presentation because Alan was in charge of it, because he was going to lead this. And I was like, all right, this will be fine. And when we started, I had a moment, and you want to talk about vulnerable. I may as well have been standing there naked because there was nothing to hide behind. I had a moment where I said the next 45 minutes are going to be some of the worst 45 minutes I've experienced in a long period of time. And it was absolutely brutal. It was brutal. It was so uncomfortable. And then when we finished, it's just silence. No, there's no claps. Nobody's clapping. Understandably, it was not good. And we're walking out of the library.
Yeah.
Library.
I think so.
It's like their library media center. It was a big school.
Yeah.
We're walking out, and it was pretty much like if you played for the opposite team and this was a home game, it just felt like everybody was just looking down on us, and I was waiting for cups and apple cores and popcorn to start falling on our heads. It was Brutal. And honestly, when you think of a speech going wrong, I think that's kind of the far end of this is going horribly wrong. I think that's nothing is landing. Nobody can hear me. This is a 45-minute presentation. We're 12 minutes in and we're 3/4 of the way done. We are in trouble.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I think when things go way worse than you expected and you're still there standing and you can have a laugh about it. We had a laugh about it on the way home. It was like, oh my goodness, did that just happen? Did that really just happen? I don't think we're ever going to speak again. Yes, to answer your question, yes.
The speeches were good. The training, not so much. But I also think, and again, side tangent here, the lesson on that was so valuable because we've made so much progress in terms of simple but powerful.
Yeah.
I had the 25 impact points of effective communication. Behind the scenes, I rate them. There's 25 of them. I'm trying to get better at speaking every single day. I was telling Kevin earlier, I'm coming up on my 10,000 hours. But, and by that I mean I'm approaching 8,000, but either way, we're on our way. And I've added it all up. But the point is that when you take L's that are hefty, they're really hard. But when you survive them, you fear them less, I think. I don't fear losing as much. Now, it doesn't mean I want to lose, and it doesn't mean I'm not prepping. I'm actually prepping more, ironically, than we ever have before. But it's not crippling. And to bring this back to the original point of the episode, if you're super afraid to lose, you're most likely not saying yes enough. If you're not afraid to lose, you're most likely saying yes too often. And you'd be better off being more discerning. And so, very, very last thing, my next level nugget is this. Very similar to what Kevin said about, are you afraid that you won't be able to figure it out if you were given a task in an hour? Or are you afraid of being in a room with 50 strangers and that kind of thing? For me, my sort of metaphor is if you were giving a speech in front of 1,000 people, and you were told 0 to 10, how much do you believe in your ability to add value to that audience and improve the quality of their lives and to crush the speech? 0 to 10. And you said 10. Okay, that means you're not afraid of being incompetent. But if I said 0 to 10, how certain are you that you can get everyone in that audience, the majority of that audience, to actually like you? For me, that second one is close to 0. That first one is close to 10. And for Kev, I think it's kind of the opposite, even though we're both probably getting to the point now where we feel like we can do a reasonable job at both. But I think that's a good tell to understand what you might regret, because if you're afraid to be incompetent, you're going to regret not taking the interviews and not giving the speeches and not giving it a shot. You need to take more shots. If you're afraid of being disliked, maybe you need the courage to say no more, because you're probably saying yes to a bunch of stuff that maybe isn't really aligned like I did.
It's a powerful concept. It's very simple. It's a simple, quote unquote, topic or simple concept. But when you start digging in, if you can sit down and say, all right, what are my top 10 regrets? And do this when you're in a balanced, when you're in a good place, not struggle bussing, because it's not going to help. But if you said, what are the top 5 to 10 regrets I've had, and what can I do to categorize them? Oh, I said no to this, I said no to this, I said no to this, I said yes to this, I said yes to this. I stayed longer than I should have here. I left earlier than I should have here. That's a really good thing to do. So a little extra next level nugget. If you have not yet purchased your tickets for Next Level Live 2024, please do so ASAP. Alan and I spent 6 hours, I believe, today, something like that. No, 5 hours today, going through the presentation and putting it together. And I can say that this is going to be the most valuable presentation we have ever given. Do not let the fact that we told you about our bombing of the training, the training not going so well, just get rid of that. Pretend that didn't exist, because that's not what's going to happen here.
Yeah, this will be very different, we promise.
It will. It's the best stuff we have. And again, Alan and I on stage is very similar to Alan and I doing this podcast, but it's different. It's different to see two speakers on stage going through things at the same time. So that's something very, very unique to us that we're trying to get as good at as humanly possible. So link will be in the show notes, whether it's in person or virtual. It is $97 in person with a catered lunch as well as a free Dreamliner, $47 for the virtual. We would love to have you in either capacity. We would appreciate the support and appreciate getting to see you virtually or in person.
I actually just ordered the 3 gifts. We are raffling off 3 gifts at Next Level Live as well. I just ordered them today, but those are a surprise, so I will not be saying what they are.
Right.
That said, later on in life, we're all going to look back and we're going to regret certain things. I am telling you right now, you're not going to regret investing in your own personal development. No one looks back and regrets investing in themselves. I've bought courses, I've gone to events, I've never regretted that. What I have regretted is some of the things that were not aligned. And personal growth always has been of benefit long term. And when you look back, you'll be glad that you came to this room. I promise you, you will leave this room more next level than you went in.
Tomorrow for episode number 1626, some people aren't ready for the answers yet. If you're someone who finds it challenging at times to get along with, or I don't want to say get along with in that frame, but just to be around other people because it always seems to go south or it seems to go negatively, make sure you listen to tomorrow's episode because we will touch on that. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep learning from regret. Next Level Nation.